It's hoped a scheme which brings victims of crime together with offenders will be rolled out through prisons across the state. The Sycamore Tree project, run by the Prison Fellowship, aims to reduce recidivism, but also help victims to heal. Kieran McKechnie reports.
It's a rare sight, prisoners and victims working together.
The great thing about the course, it lets you heal. It gives you the power to heal because you're asking for forgiveness.
The course is the Sycamore Tree project, run here at the high security prison at Gatton in southern Queensland. Over 8 weeks, offenders meet victims to talk about the effects of their crimes.
Which has a greater impact on us as offenders because then it brings out these raw feelings and hurt. You see the hurt in people.
The prisoner gets change, the victim gets healing. The state's not paying $120,000 a year to keep someone in a prison.
This man is serving an 11-year sentence. He's confident when he leaves here in 5 years, it'll be for the last time.
With the support network that I've obtained in here through the Sycamore Tree and building the bridges with family and stuff, that there won't be no reoffending.
Fran Dempsey's husband was murdered 37 years ago. She says for victims too, the project offers a way to move forward.
I really did think that I was coming here to offer help. But I don't. Hopefully I have offered some help or given some help to people, but I think I've received more.
Currently, this is the only prison that facilitates the Sycamore Tree project, but the Prison Fellowship is in talks with the Queensland Government about rolling the scheme out to prisons across the state.
Hi, I'm Martin from the Sycamore Tree project. I've had the amazing experience of sitting down with groups of crime victims and inmates in some of our local prisons. And would you believe it, it's the inmates who are more nervous. We had a guy that came in once, a big muscly guy with the tats. He was highly respected and feared in the prison, but in the Sycamore Tree project on that first day, he said for the first time in his life he was scared just sitting down with our group of crime victims. He was scared because this was the first time he had ever thought about his own victims who had to pick up the pieces after his crime. When we sat down that first day, it really hit him. The prison bosses keep saying that it's our program that gets through to them. And we do this by looking at the gospel principles of confession, repentance, forgiveness and reconciliation. And then we say, okay, how does this apply in real life after the impact of crime? When you've committed an armed robbery or lost a loved one in a murder? Do these teachings of Jesus still work in the aftermath of devastating situations? And we found out that yes, they do. These natural enemies start to realise that they have a lot in common. Most criminals have been victims of crime through violence and abuse in the home as children. So there's a point of connection and empathy. And crime victims tell their stories and see the impact of their stories in the faces of these tough criminals. We see tears of regret. The tough guy attitude starts to break down. And after 7 weeks of this, we bring in officials from the community into the prison to see the results. We've had judges, psychologists, criminologists, prison officials, members of parliament, and they've all said the same thing. We've never seen anything like this. And I've seen these people in tears. In the next segment, you'll see some reflections from crime survivors who have been through the Sycamore Tree project. They talk about what it meant to them to tell their stories and experience healing in the most unexpected ways.
My story starts where my dad took my mum's life when I was about 13. And how that happened was we went out for a picnic the day before. I woke up the next morning to my brother shaking me saying, "Pete, you got to get out of bed. Dad's just gone out of the house, Mum's dead, we've got to get out."
It came over the news that a body had been found in the Daisy Hill Forest, believed to be the remains of missing car salesman Brian Andrews.
And it flashed up on the news that a skeleton had been found in the bush, and they put a picture of Dad.
We just screamed. I just remember my brother, who was 7 at the time, he ran up the hallway, he ran into his room, he grabbed this plane model that he'd built with Dad, and he just smashed it.
Early morning, it was 6 a.m. I was at work and I'd heard that there'd been a triple murder in Toowoomba. And when we got to the police station, they informed us that Michael had been murdered along with 2 of his students, and that's when our world fell apart.
I was working in a bank at the time, and a man came in and held a gun to my head and threatened my life and demanded money. So I handed over the money, of course. After it happened, I took a couple of months off work. I got myself prepared to go back to work, and then the first day back at work, it happened again. Yeah, and I think that's when the real impact hit me at that point. And
2 boys went across the road and stole a bottle of rum, drank the rum, and then killed Tyson, one of Michael's students. They then went inside the unit, killed David Lyons. Michael, being Michael, put his hand up and said, "Stop doing what you're doing to my students, my kids. Do what you want to me, but leave my kids alone." So they did. They tortured him for 6 hours. And then they told one of his students to then kill Michael, or he too would be killed. This young lad killed Michael. They disfigured Michael so much so that the only way we could identify Michael was by DNA.
I didn't quite know what to expect, and I went into the Sycamore program with a lot of trepidation.
I was very hesitant about being involved in the program.
So at first, it was a bit scary going in there.
And for someone who's never been in prison or seen inside of a prison, it was very confronting and scary.
To face the offenders in prison, I found was really enlightening. They weren't horrible people. They were young men who had had terrible childhoods.
I was the first one to share my story when we went in, when the course, and the thing that I wanted to impart to the fellas in there was these arms have gone around the man in love and forgiveness that put his hands around my mother's throat and took a life.
Before telling my story, I didn't think it was any big thing, but on reflection and that night after sharing my story, that was when it dawned on me, that is the absolute first time anyone's given me the time to hear me, and I've actually shared that part of myself. It was an amazing feeling and a sense of relief, that feeling heard, validated, hearing people from inside the prison actually ponder that and reflect on that and actually respond to how I was feeling.
Inmates quite often give us a nice gift or cards or a nice poem, and I actually carry around a poem with me that one of the prisoners wrote because it's just so beautiful.
If we can just save one person from just reoffending, just one, it's worth it.